Hey guys, so we just looked at a couple lessons on for loops, and for loops are used when we know how many times we want to run the loop, and so it's called a counted loop. And there's another kind of loop which is called a while loop, and while loops are used for when we don't really know how many times we want to run our loop. We just want to run it until a certain condition is met, and that's what they're good for. Now I have two loops here. We've got a for loop, which is right here, and we also have a while loop, which is right here. And I'm going to run it to show that they actually output the exact same thing. So you can see our for loop prints 0, 1, 0 right up to 9, and our while loop goes from 0 up to 9 as well. Now let's get rid of our for loop and just look at the while loop for a little bit. Now this while loop will execute everything that's indented after the while as long as our condition is still true. So right here we can see that our variable n starts out as 0. And while n is less than 10, remember right now it's 0, so it is less than 10, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to print the value of n to the screen, and then we're not going to go to the next line, and then we're going to add 1 to n, so now n will be 1. We're going to run it again. So while n is less than 10, so it's up to 1, we're going to print it to the screen, so it prints a 2, and then it increments it up by 1, so now it's a 3. And then you run through, and now it's a 4, and now it's a 5. All the way up until n reaches the number 10. Well, n is not less than 10 anymore. So our while loop is going to stop and we'll be done our program. But this actually isn't much different at all from a for loop, right? We're still counting from one number up until we reach another number, and then we're exiting out of our loop. So we could just use a for loop for that. In fact, a for loop would be better in this case because it takes only 2 lines of code instead of 4. Another example, though, could be what if we wanted to keep taking numbers from the user until they entered a 0? So let's try that out. Now we're going to get out of this while loop with something that's called a flag. And so let's make our flag called done. And I'm going to set done to false. In other words, we're not done entering numbers yet. Now done is a Boolean. That means that done is going to be true or false. Those are the only two things that it can be. So we're going to say while done is not equal to false, or sorry, is not equal to true. So in other words, while we're still entering stuff, while we're not done yet, so while done is not true. Now this looks kind of silly, so instead I'm going to erase this and put it in a slightly different way. While not done. So in other words, while done is still false. While not done, what do we want to do? Well, we want to get a number from the user. So the number that we're going to get is going to be an integer number. Enter a number 0 to quit. And we're going to get the number from the user. Now, if the number that they enter is a 0, we want to quit the program. So we're going to say if number is 0, then we want to quit. So we're going to say done is true. We're done entering numbers. Let's run this program and check it out. So it says enter a number 0 to quit, enter a 5, enter a number 0 to quit, enter a 4, a 1, a negative 100, enter 0, boom, our program's done. Now just to make sure that our program's done, I should probably have some sort of print statement right here, print done, just to show that we're actually done. Run it again. So enter a number 4, 5, 8, 0, boom, we're done our program. So this is going to just keep looping until we enter the number 0. Now sort of like what we did with the for loop, we can take a whole bunch of numbers from the user and add them up. So how can we do that in this case? Well, we could have a variable called total, and of course it's going to start out at 0 because we haven't entered any values. And so while we're not done, we're going to get a number from the user. If the number of 0 is 0, we're going to quit. And if the number is anything else, we want to add it. So the total is going to be, we're going to add number to the total. So whatever number they enter, we're going to add that up to the total. And then at the very end, we're going to print the total is, and then we can print the value of total. Let's run this. So enter a number 0 to quit. I'm going to enter the number 4, 5, and 6. Then I'm going to enter 0. And see, 4 plus 5 is 9 plus 6 is 15, so the total is 15. It's working pretty good. Now what if we wanted to also find the average of all of these numbers? Well, we could do that pretty easy too. So instead of this just having a value called total, what we could do is a variable called counter. And counter equals 0. We're going to keep track of how many numbers the user has entered. So at the very start, they haven't entered anything. If the number they enter is 0, we don't want to add another number, right? We don't want to include the 0 in our calculation. So if they enter anything else, we're going to say add that number to the total, and then we're also going to add 1 to the counter. So counter plus equals 1. So we're going to add 1 to our counter. So the total is, and we're going to have a total amount, and then we're also going to say the average of your numbers is, and then we're also going to include the average, and you'll of course calculate average by saying total divided by counter. So we have a total sum, we're adding up to a total amount, take all of the numbers that they enter, add them all up, and divide by how many numbers that they actually ended up entering. Let's run this program, enter a number, and I'm going to pick 10, 25, and 6, and then I'm going to enter a 0. So 10 plus 25 is 35, plus 6 more is 41, and 41, we entered 3 numbers, right? So 41 divided by 3 should be about 13 roughly, if 39 was the number, so it should be 13 and 2/3, and you can see it's 13.66666, which is 13 and 2/3. Now that's kind of boring. So let's make a new program here. In fact, let's write a short little password program. I know we've done it before, but we've just asked the user to enter the correct password, and we just tell them whether they're right or wrong. What if we want them to keep entering it until they get the right password, and they can't go on in the program until they enter the right password? So let's set up a variable called correct password, and let's set it to Dharma. And then we also need a variable for what they're going to be entering, and I'm going to call that guess. And I'm just going to set it up to be in a blank, kind of a blank thing right now. And we're going to say keep asking. What we want to do is we want to keep asking them for the password until they enter the right one, right? So we're going to say while their guess is not equal to the correct password. And what do we want to do? Remember that colon, just like for loops and if statements. So what do we want to do? Well, first we want to ask them for the password, right? So let's get the value of guess from them. Guess equals input, enter the password. Next, what we want to do is tell them whether they got it right or not. So if the guess is not equal to the correct password, then we can say, sorry, that is incorrect. Try again. And otherwise, we're going to jump out of the while loop because the guess will be the same as the correct password. So eventually they're going to get it right, and then we can just tell them password accepted. Let's run it. Try it. Make sure it works. So enter the password. I know that the correct password is Dharma, so let's say Josh. Oh, sorry, that's incorrect. Try again. Is it that? No. Is it 234? No. Is it Dharma? Password accepted. We could also make a little guessing game. Guess my age sort of a game. So my age is, now I'm just making up a random number here, of course. Let's say my age is 33. And while, what we want to do is we want to keep asking them, what is my age? And we're going to keep asking them until they guess the right age. And in fact, we could throw a little twist in. We could say if their guess is lower than my age, then we could say, nope, that's too low. And if it's too high, we could say, no, that's too high, and help them kind of whittle it down. So we're going to need a variable that they're going to have to guess. So we'll just say their guess. And so far, they haven't guessed anything. So while guess is not equal to my age, then we're going to say enter a guess. So guess equals, and we're going to get an integer and put what is my age. So we're going to get our guess from the user, and then we're going to say if the guess is less than my age, then we're going to say good guess, but that's too low. And so elif, so if they guess something, if they guess something bigger than my age, then we could print, no, I'm not that old. And lastly, the only other thing they could guess is actually your age. So we could print, yep, you got it. And let's just have a little done statement just to show that we're done our while loop. This won't print until we get out of this while loop. And we'll run this program. What is my age? Oh, are you 12? Good guess, but that's too low. Oh, are you 54? No, I'm not that old. Okay, are you 31? Oh, too low. All right, are you 32? Too low. Are you 33? Yep, you got it, and we're done. Now we can actually make this program slightly more simple. And the way we can do that is we're going to have their guess, and we're going to have my age here. But instead of saying, well, guess is not equal to my age, we're just going to say, well, true. So we're just going to keep doing this loop no matter what, right? Because this loop only happens when this condition is true. So we're just going to keep doing this loop over and over and over again. So we're going to guess what is my age. If the guess is, you say, no, it's too low, etc., etc., etc. So otherwise, we're going to print, yep, you got it, and then we're going to say break. Okay, so this is just a, maybe not more simple, but it's a different way of doing a while loop. And the break lets you jump out of the while loop. So let's run it again. What's my age? 12, too low. 56, not that old. 33, yep, you got it, done. So break means jump out of this loop that you're in, even if this condition is still true. Break just means stop doing it. And that's the end of this lesson.